And I'm pressing live. You're good to go.
Yes, y'all. It is the Take Six Spread Love podcast, baby. We in the building. Here it is.
Number
Thursday
25.
Night. Number 25.
Oh, yeah.
Happens to be the 25th of March.
Yes, sir.
And we have a very, very special guest with us today. The man, the myth, the legend, the incomparable Mr. Gerald Albright is in the building. What's up,
G5G? G5G.
What's
Okay,
up,
brother?
Oh, what's up, guys? So good to see you, man.
dude?
Wow.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, man. What in the world have you been up to in this crazy pandemic, bro?
Well, it's depending on what part of the pandemic you're speaking of. You know, if we're talking about the beginning of the pandemic, I was totally crazy, and it was major anxiety and what the heck is going on? Why can't I get paper goods at the stores? Why is just one steak in the meat department that hasn't been claimed? I mean, it just got to be crazy, man. I've never seen anything like that in my years. And but then we kind of settled into, okay, this is what it is. We got to quarantine, and it really pays to have a great woman that you love under the same roof to keep things flowing well, man. And we just became a team throughout this year and a half, and we just made the best of it and just prayed a lot, and became hopeful, and just knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel, and we were going to get out of this healthy and unscathed. So, you know, I'm just glad to be here looking at you guys, man. You know?
That's right.
That's awesome.
You got a beautiful family, brother. I've been enjoying watching your grandbaby coming up and all of that. Was this is this the longest uninterrupted time you've been with your wife? Because of Road Dogs, we don't even know what that's like being home.
This is the longest, and I know some people have made it and others haven't.
That's true. That's true. Those walls come in on you.
Real about it, you know. But but you know, we found other facets of one another doing this. You know, when you're under the same roof and you know what you have to do, there's just another level of closeness and love that happens, and a real cohesive nature to pull off whatever's going on. And we were able to do it. And of course, we're not out of the woods yet, but I'm just happy that we made it this far. Next year, we'll be celebrating 50 years. So,
whoa, fantastic, brother.
Amen.
Wow, that is awesome.
So we're, you know, you can't give up at 49. You know,
no. You missed the whole point of the episode.
Wow.
Right. Exactly.
So, Gerald, let's go all the way back to what I believe is the beginning for us with you.
Okay.
We recorded together on Q's Juke Joint on September.
Yes.
Now, we were aware who you were before that, but man, to this day, when I listen to that song and I listen to all the solos, your solo, brother. Ooh-wee. How did you get in on that project with Q?
Well, Q found me, actually. It's interesting. You know, Q pretty much has, you know, channels for everybody who he wants to use. He just wakes up and says, okay, who do I want to use on a given project today?
Right.
And if Q is calling, you come running.
That's right.
And the first time I met Q was at the Universal Amphitheater. And I was sitting maybe 7 or 8 rows from the stage. He was like 3 or 4 rows from the stage, but I recognized his profile, and I nudged Glennis. I said, there's Quincy over there, you know. So, and I believe it was Regina Bell and Frankie Beverly and Mays on the show. And during the set change, you know, they turn the lights up and everybody kind of stands up and they stretching, you know, getting ready for the next show. And something gave me the nerve and the audacity to go up to Q and just say, hey, Gerald Albright, I'm a big fan. And he says, man, I love you. And he started singing this tune from my first record, which came out in 1987, called King Boulevard, which I dedicated to Martin Luther King Jr. And he said, man, I know your tune, man, is so killing. Da, 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 da. And he started singing the melody. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and he's an instrumentalist, so he has those ears for it.
He has those ears.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, he started calling me for sessions. And I did the Back on the Block album and Juke Joint. And you know, it was just an honor to be called by him, man. And I consider him kind of an industry dad. You know, he's just that guy.
Yeah, I think that's the cool thing about being a musician. We can jam with each other. You know, we don't have to, it's not me versus you. Like a couple cats who are athletes are at the top of their game, at some point it's going to be them versus the other cat. But you could say, as music, we could do all this together. Even actors don't even get that. You know, it was a black man 35 to 40 versus another black man 35 to 40. Is you going to work or I'm going to work? With music, we could all be together. It's a whole different community.
It's a beautiful thing, man. And I'm just proud to be in it as one of the voices of it. And, you know, you guys, I have been total fans of yours since you guys started. I mean, I'm like, who are these dudes? When you first started, man, because up to that point, I was hearing Manhattan Transfer. And I was like, okay, that's cool, you know, but then Take 6 came out and I was like, oh my God, it's just on steroids. It's on another level.
Thank you, brother. Thank you
so much. I've been an ultimate fan. What's up, Mark?
What's going on? We've been fans of yours before we got started.
Ain't that true?
Well, you beat me.
We were the liner note boys. Who's on track 7? Who's on track 7 though?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm honored, man. Thank you guys so much.
You know what's amazing to me? We fly through Atlanta a lot, of course, the major hub, and the saxophone is basically, I mean, it's just an instrument that wind is blowing through, and it's amazing to me that I can tell you're playing every time I'm going through. I got my Shazam app, and I'm like, that's Gerald. That's Gerald. I'm like, yep, absolutely. Gerald. How is that even possible, bro? Absolutely. That you have this uniqueness that I know that it's you playing, and it's not even like I can hear your voice, but the way that you use your instrument is it's so incredible, and it's so uniquely yours. And I
that's
just
his voice.
Appreciate that from you.
Well, the secret is I have 4 good notes that I really know how to play, and I just interchange them and I pull it off every time.
You know, we've only had 3 notes. So.
Oh no, you guys have a plethora of notes. I know for a fact.
They're all the 3 played over and over again. So.
Well, thank you for the compliment, man.
Absolutely.
I think it comes from just the initial passion of the instrument. I started when I was 9 years old. My brother, who's 8 years my senior, had virtually every James Brown record that he ever recorded at that time. So I'm listening to James Brown. I'm listening to gospel music.
Maceo.
Yeah, and I heard Maceo for the first time. I'm like, who is this guy? You know, and I described Maceo as a drummer playing saxophone because he was so rhythmic in his approach. He's still doing it. He is so rhythmic in his approach. And I just love what he does. And every time I call him and tell him, he's like, Gerald, man, get off the phone. Come on, man, please. I'm like, Maceo, you don't understand. You are the starting block of my loving the instrument.
Wow. That's great.
And then later on in high school and college, I was introduced to Cannonball Adderley. So if I had to describe musical bookends, it would be Maceo initially, and then Cannonball, and then along the way, you know, Grover, Ronnie Laws,
nice.
You know, Earl Bostic, Stanley Turrentine, folks like that kind of were seasonings in that pot of gumbo along the way. And but the main 2 guys were Maceo and Cannonball Adderley.
So one of the questions we always get is, are you listening to anyone new or anybody that we need to hear about? For you, whether it's saxophone or anybody, who are you listening to right now?
Wow. I'm all over the place, Claude, to be honest. It's depending on the time of day. It's depending on the day. I mean, if you look at what presets I have in my truck, the first set of presets are just comedy. it's just comedy channels because I need to laugh during this COVID. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like pressing different presets of comedy channels, man, and listening to Dave Chappelle and all these guys just to keep me smiling, you know. But I mix it up between, I mean, I love gospel. I just love the energy of gospel. And I love musicians who come out of the church. They might not even be able to read music, but the way they approach the instruments, man, it's just, that's not textbook. That's something that you just have to feel in your heart and soul, you know.
Right.
And but as far as somebody new, I don't know. I've been going on Instagram and going to some of these sites, like because I'm a bass player. I've been going to I think it's called bass.vid, and I'm seeing all these young bass players, man, that are just killing. One that comes to mind, I played on his first single, which is still doing very well in the charts. His name is Justin Lee Schultz. And he's like this 14-year-old guy that's, I think he lives in Florida actually, but he's a 14-year-old guy that plays everything. I mean, he plays keyboards like Herbie, he plays bass, any kind of style you want. He plays drums, he plays guitar like George Benson. 14.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and I've been just kind of zoning in on him and his following. He has hundreds of thousands of followers.
Wow.
On you know, across the board, Facebook, Instagram, and stuff. So he's going to be one of the next guys. You know, there's always one guy that just slips through the cracks that you go, okay, that's the Michael Jordan of music in this decade. You know.
Nice.
By the way, what you did on your Champagne Life, playing bass.
Oh yeah,
we're killing, man. I couldn't.
You.
It was one of those radio moments. Like,
I want to say we were on the road and we heard it for the first time on the radio, and we were like, "What is this?" We knew it was you, first of all.
When it first
know that you were on bass. Yeah, man.
And I just, you know, I was wishing that we could have been your background vocalist on that because it is just so nasty.
That kills.
That was that Selena killed.
That was Selena.
That was Selena. She killed.
She did all the backgrounds on that. Yeah, and then that was a collaboration with me and Norman Brown.
Yeah, man.
On our 24/7 project, which was fun to put together. And Norman's one of my favorite guitarists and dearest friends from way back.
Did you start with bass and then go to sax, or?
I started with saxophone actually.
Okay.
And I started learning bass during college. I went to what was then called the Orange Show in San Bernardino, California. It was this big music festival that occurred every year. And it was right down the road from Redlands University where I went to school. And so on the weekend, we went to see the Brothers Johnson, who were at that point were in their heyday with Stomp and Strawberry. And I was sitting in the front row and I'm looking up at, you know, George and Lewis comes out and does this incredible bass solo. And I'm like, my mouth dropped and I said, I've
got to play that.
I want to do that. And so a couple of days later, I have a dear friend to this day named John Jorgensen, who has played for a lot of people. But he's a great guitarist, multi-instrumentalist, and he's an instrument collector. And I just asked him, I said, John, do you have a bass just sitting at home, man, that I could just sit in my dorm room and practice? And he said, yeah, I got an old bass. It's not great, but you can, you know, get a decent start on it. And it happened to be an old Hofner bass that Paul McCartney, I think he still uses it in the Beatles.
Wow.
It's hollow body and dark wood. It's a cool little bass. And so I just sat in my dorm room and I taught myself, listening to records, you know, and after college, while I was doing sessions, I would always get with the bass players and get these tips, you know, from like Freddie Washington and Nathan East.
Wow,
guys. And it became a part of my arsenal. And so now, ironically, I'm actually doing more bass sessions here at the house for people than saxophone. So
wow.
It's funny how life takes you.
It is funny.
You know?
Well, that's going to be my next question. What have you learned about yourself, or what have you figured out is a passion of yours since you've been at home for this past year?
Mixing. The current project called G String, which has been out since last October, I mixed it. And I just, you know, I'm at home. I'm like, okay, how can I broaden my musical portfolio? And I'm sitting here and I know my studio well, which I'm sure you guys respectively know all your studios, and you know how you want it to sound, you know what you want to jump out of the speaker. So I just started just mixing. I used to do pretty nice rough mixes, but I never went to the formal stage of mixing.
Right.
And so I got with my mastering guy and just basically did an internship and asked him some questions, and he told me the proper plugins to use and what levels everything needed to be and how to, I mean, I knew how to pan and stuff. I knew all the basic fundamentals, but I'm very proud of that project because when I hear it on the radio, I'm like, wow, I mixed that. And
Wow.
And it was fun. So now that I've crossed that hurdle, I'm really into mixing now. I'm really, and when I hear songs now, I'm analyzing them. Okay, the vocal's gonna come up in bar 33, you know, whatever. So I'm a lot
You find
more
yourself
analytical.
wanting to mix other people's stuff, or are you just like, I want to do this for me, and that's the thing?
Sky's the limit. I would love to do it for other folks too. I mean, if they want me to do it, if they trust my ears, I would absolutely love to do it, Club. Yeah.
I got a question for you. So is there, all right, so you're a headliner, recording artist, you top billing, blah, blah, blah. But when you're home and you get hired to be a sideman or just to be on a record, does that do a number to you at all? Or you just look at it just as work, this is what I got to do?
I look at it as just work because that's what I did before I became a recording artist.
Right.
I used to, you know, born and raised in LA. I worked all the studios in LA, mainly as a woodwind player. And I did a lot of sessions for different folks and TV and things like that and movies. And so I come from that. So when people call me for that, it's familiar. And I just go, okay, let's do it. You know, I don't mind doing it all. I think that keeps the monotony down, you know, just doing different things with different people. And I think the biggest part of what we do is the networking aspect of it, you know, and whenever I get a chance to work with you guys like you did on my latest Christmas record, man, oh my God, what you guys did on my song, man, was just incredible. Oh, Christmas Tree was just
that was fun.
We've been waiting for that moment for a very long time.
Well, now we've started something now, so it's
yes.
Well, there's always another Christmas coming
now.
Yep. So we've got some questions in the chat, Gerald. Someone asked, what is your favorite concert you've been to and why?
As a spectator?
Yes.
Or, wow. You know, the first person that comes to mind is James Brown. I think it's because of my roots. And I just love, I'm a funketeer. I mean, I play jazz, but guys, I'm a funketeer, you know, in the real world, you know. And I just love that four on the floor, just gut bucket, you know, on the top of the speaker type of funk. And whenever I used to go to James Brown's concerts, man, I was just in awe. And I got to meet him on 2 occasions. And, you know, for Maceo to be associated with James and the whole, it was just like, this is like my Lakers, you know, this is, you know, musically speaking. And
so then a concert that you participated in, what's been the favorite one that you've been a part of?
I'm going to say it's neck and neck between Whitney Houston and Phil Collins. Those were the largest audiences that I've ever performed for, especially Phil. When we did our European tour, we did some outdoor festivals where you'd look off the stage, you couldn't even see the end of the crowd. There would be 85,000 people out there.
Wow.
Just standing side by side, some people fainting because of the weather, the heat and everything. And we was, and I'm standing on stage playing my horn and just thinking, all these people came to see one guy.
Yeah.
One guy, you know, and that's power, man. You know, so I learned a lot doing shows as a sideman on that level. And actually, Phil was very gracious because he featured me on like 4 or 5 songs during the course of his set. So I got a lot of solo time. And so, you know, my hat off to Phil Collins. He's a dear friend and I miss him. I haven't seen him in quite a while.
That's
so
amazing.
Hey, Joel.
What's going on?
There he is. How you doing, man?
Headed home.
We got a Oh, sorry, Joy.
You had some defining moments and defining relationships. You spoke about Quincy Jones, Maceo. What is another defining relationship, another defining moment that kind of colored your career, your journey? Because, you know, we would sit with certain other instrumentalists and just listen to the relationships, the conversations they had. What's a conversation? What was another meeting or defining moment that just sent the trajectory of your career in the direction that it is?
I would say, you know, I mentioned earlier in the conversation that Quincy Jones, I kind of nicknamed as my industry dad. Well, I had two industry dads. The other's no longer with us, George Duke. Mm-hmm. And I've always been in awe of George because he's just like this chameleon that can play in any given situation, from Frank Zappa to Weather Report to whatever, you know. It just, he can play it all. And prior to meeting him, I just admired him from afar, and I got a chance to meet him in Washington, D.C. at Constitution Hall. Mm-hmm. He was the guest keyboardist for Anita Baker, who I was playing bass with at the time, in the mid 80s. And here comes George Duke walking backstage, and I'm just like a little kid under a Christmas tree, and I'm like nervous. I don't know if I can approach him, you know? I mean, I heard that he was a great guy, but this is George Duke. Yeah. And when I went up to him, and I just introduced myself like I did to Quincy at the Universal Amphitheater, and he was just so gracious, man. And from that day, we were like father-son to one another, because whenever we would do sessions together, people would always say that we looked alike. It was something about the cheeks. They would always comment about the cheeks. And there was this trombonist, George Bohannon from LA, who is a renowned trombonist, a longtime friend of mine, who we did sessions with George. And he would kid us. It's like, man, y'all better check the family tree. I think y'all got some DNA going on here. So it was a running joke for decades. And I literally called him Dad whenever I saw him. Hey, Pops, Papa G, you know. So he was a very defining moment for me, Joel. It just talking to him, you just got a lot of knowledge from him. He's just like, you know, the Encyclopedia Britannica of music, you know, whatever you need to know. And he brings all that history of what he did prior to my meeting him to the table. And I would just sit and listen to him, you know. The third guy who, if I had to round it out to three, it would be Eddie Harris, God rest his soul. Eddie, I used to tease Eddie, because I used to say, man, when I come over your house, I need to bring a lunch, because he would just talk. If you sat down in his kitchen area, man, he would just talk, and he wanted to throw the knowledge to me, being that young guy who's trying to get his act together, and being the innovative person that he was. You know, a lot of people don't know that beyond being a sax player, he had all these patented inventions. And, you know, he would put a saxophone mouthpiece on the trumpet and play it, and things like that. He would just mix things up. He was one of those kind of guys who just wake up and go, I wonder if I did that and put that next to that, you know. And some of it worked, and it was patented, and he did very well with those patents. Wow. But as a musician, you don't think about that kind of stuff, you know. You know, you want to know what a sharp 9 chord is and what you play over it and that whole thing. But he came from a whole nother angle. And he always told me, he says, Gerald, I know you're playing contemporary jazz and R&B, and he says, but never forget your traditional roots. He says, no matter what happens in the music business, you can always find a gig at a jazz club.
That's true.
So it's just stuff like that it's so memorable. I mean, it was like it was just yesterday me sitting with him, you know. So hopefully that answers your question, Joe.
Yeah, tell us about your experience with Quincy, because, you know, for us, Quincy was a pretty trajectory type of person for us too. But the we also had experiences with George Duke.
Yes.
But I just want to compare notes. I want to see how it was for you to work with him, sit across from him, and glean from him.
Well, both of them were just ultimate blessings. It's kind of like chapters of a book. It's one chapter is different from the other, but there was one point in my career, honestly, where I wasn't happy with my career. I wasn't happy with what the record company was doing with my career in terms of promo and marketing and things like that. And it was starting to affect me creatively. So at one of those sessions for, I think it was either September or Tevin Campbell.
Better you. Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow, yes. We took a break and we sat in the lounge of his favorite studio was Record One.
Yeah.
And we sat in the lounge of Record One, and I just vented to him, man. And we just sat on the couch and he was just listening, to everything I had to say, about my disappointment with this and that. And he has this talent of just saying maybe 3 or 4 sentences that you just go, wow, okay, I get it,
Yeah.
So they used to verbally feed me, speaking of George too, all of these tips and hints about the music business that I, to this day, use. And it was just stellar moments for me. I wish I could get them back,
Now, do you share those nuggets of wisdom with younger people?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Absolutely. It's like pay it forward, what I'm finding now, and I'm sure you guys get the same thing on social media, especially Instagram. I have all these sax players who are playing over a lot of my songs and hitting me on DM, and asking questions, what kind of mouthpiece you use, what kind of ligature, what kind of reed, what kind of horn. Well, I know the horn you play, but what kind of action do you have on the horn? Is it light action or heavy action? Or, it just, and all these every day, I'm answering, and it's hard to keep up sometimes. And a lot of people asking, do you give internet lessons and stuff? And I don't, unfortunately. I just don't have the time right now. I'm still trying to teach myself how to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, man. You kind of segued into it a little bit. Is there, because a lot of times we share our victories, but there have been some major, disasters and almost defeats. Has there ever been, if you look back over your career, either your career or even like in family life or whatever, it's one of the either missed opportunities or biggest mistakes that you've made in your career that you could encourage somebody not to walk in that?
Well, I would say a lot of that was early on when I was green, and I was dark green, and really didn't know a lot about the business aspect of what I was doing. At an early age, if I was doing a gig, if I was making a couple of dollars, if I was recording in the studio, making some, not even a record, just some demos, I was happy because I was doing what I wanted to do. So when it came time to do a record deal, back in 1986, wow, man, time is flying. Back in 1986, I had a little apartment in West LA, and I would buy musical instruments out of this throwaway paper called the recycler. And it's kind of like what, I can't think of the internet.
Craigslist.
It was a Craigslist of newspapers. And I would find like an old Wurlitzer piano for a couple of $100, and I went pick that up, and then I bought a 4-track TIAC small reel-to-reel tape recorder. And, I would record on 3 of the tracks, bounce them down to the 4th track, record 3 more tracks, bounce it down to the 4th track. So by the time I did 3 or 4 generations of this, I got all this hiss in the demo. But, the hiss didn't bother me because I'm recording, I'm doing my thing.
Right.
So I did like a 5-tune demo, and I'm doing all the instrumentation, never been great at keyboards, but I know how to spell chords out and stuff. And I did some background vocals. I even sung lead on one And long story short, fast forward, I was doing a show. I want to say it was in, it was back east somewhere. It was a theater in the round. I can't think of the name of the theater, but I was playing bass with Anita, and Sylvia Rohn from Atlantic Records at the time happened to be in the audience. And so after the show, she comes backstage and she comes straight up to me and she says, I love what you did. I love what you did. Because in that show, I played sax and bass, mainly bass, but then in the middle of the show, we did this song together, Anita and I, called Watch Your Step. And at the point where the sax solo comes in, where I actually did it on her record, but she didn't know I recorded it on a record for years. Bobby Lau, who's a musical director and keyboardist, he would play keyboard bass from that point out. And so we would battle between vocals and sax. And Sylvie just loved that. So she gave me her card and said, hey, if you get a minute, let's talk, and blah, 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 blah. So I get home, and I talk to Glennis and I tell her this whole story. She says, well, you ought to give her a call. You got a demo, it's not polished, it's rough around the edges, but what the heck? And so I called her, and she was in her East Coast office, and she says, well, I happen to be coming to LA, and she had an apartment in LA right by the Beverly Center. I happen to be coming the next week. Why don't you meet with me and my right-hand guy, Merlin Bob, who, if you saw Sylvia, you saw Merlin. They traveled as a pair. And we sat down on her couch in her apartment, and we're talking, and she pressed the cassette. You press play, and we're listening to my demo tape. And, she's nodding her head, and I'm telling her what my aspirations are, what I'm feeling like I want to be as an artist. And it was about a 45-minute meeting. And after she heard like 3 or 4 songs, she says, Gerald, I love what I hear. I love your concept. If you want a record deal, you have one. Boom, just like that. This is, mind you, without a manager,
right?
Without somebody shopping my stuff.
Sheer talent.
Yeah, it's just, right place, right time. And so I came home to my little apartment, and I walk in the door, and I just picked Glennis up, and it was like out of a TV movie. You'd pick her up and you just like go in a circle. You just carry her, out of happiness and sheer joy, And after that point, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to deal with record companies. I don't know about budgets and all that stuff. I got to get a manager. So it was after the fact that I got the manager. It wasn't before the fact, which usually happens in the protocol, And then the rest is history. 21 records in. So that was a real defining moment for me,
I got
great story.
Okay. Since you talked about Sylvia Rohn, record company, A&R, there are lots of listeners out there that come to us, and I'm sure they come to you, and they say, well, what do I need to do to make it in the industry? That's that big foreboding question that, is so hard to answer. But you, in your concerts, what's going to get the crowd. What's going to give them goosebumps. And what's going to, you take them through all kinds of different emotions through your show. What is it that you would tell somebody else, and as an A&R person, that they need to bring to the table or to the stage or to wherever their performance that will get them off the ground or make people want to listen to them?
Well, if it was a situation where it was sight unseen, where I don't know what this person sounds like or what they play like or whatever, I don't know their level of proficiency, I would just say that you got to have something different than everybody else is doing. You got to have something that people will be drawn to. You have to have somebody draw their attention to you. And whatever that is, be it the way you sing. It all starts with the talent. You got to have that it factor. There's a lot of people who think they can sing, but they can't sing. You know what I'm saying? So, and I have to these days, especially, answer people very honestly, and say, look, you really got to be passionate about it. You have to, be creative and put a demo tape together that really represents you in the best way that it can possibly represent you. And then you have to learn the business of music to bring the two together to hopefully fulfill your dream. And then the addendum to that is never stop, because prior to the Sylvia Rhone chapter, I got a lot of no's on that demo tape.
Mm.
You know, that, you know, people were like, well, nice music, but I'm not really hearing it for our roster right now, you know. But I just kept trying. I just had the tenacity to move forward and really grab my dream. And I'm so glad I did.
Listen,
Awesome.
man, I want to appreciate you for your yes, bro. Me and Vin were working on a record years ago, not too long ago, actually, for Breath of Life out in LA. And we wrote this song together called Breath of Life. And man, I was so nervous to call you. But man, when you from the intro,
blew your face off.
from the
You blew your face off.
Oh,
brother,
man.
that thing
Awesome.
touched my heart, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for your yes, bro.
I was glad to do it, man. You, like I said, we're family.
Yes,
you know?
sir.
Hey,
Great, because I got another song I need to send to you.
Yeah, I got some
That's all
favorites
that's
I need to call. You know, I haven't called yet, but I got a list, man. I got a list.
come on, man.
Gerald,
all it takes is a
apparently
phone call.
this
That's
is
all it
also This Is Your Life, because Ken Drake writes, Gerald came and played bass with our high school jazz band in 1981,
Whoa.
and he went by the stage name Bootsy.
What?
Hootsy?
Bootsy.
Bootsy.
Come
I
on.
heard that.
Come on,
No, wait,
Gerald. What's
wait.
this about?
My
Okay.
man.
I thought you were going to say another nickname. I only had, as far as I remember, there was only one nickname that a former teacher of mine gave me, and he's still a great producer, and he's deep in the music business now. His name is Reggie Andrews, and he taught me in high school, and he called me Wonder Funk.
Wow.
Nice.
I don't remember the Bootsy part, Claude. That's the first I've heard about that. And I don't have the star sunglasses to prove it, you know, so I don't know about that one, you know.
Wonderful.
funny.
That's that one holds on. That's a good. I like that.
If you had the two attributes of being killer on stage or killing on the radio, but you had to give up one, which one would you give up?
Ooh.
I would give up radio, because there's something about the spontaneity of live music that keeps me going, man. You know,
you're a jazzer.
Yeah, exactly. And if I make people feel better walking out of the venue than when they walked in, I've done my job.
Awesome.
And so if I had to give up one, it would be radio. It would be
Are you
radio.
getting back into the live shows now? Do you have things on the books that you're doing, or is it still kind of locked up? Like
I have things on the books. I haven't played, besides doing live stream concerts here in my studio, I haven't played anything live since late February of last year.
Yeah.
But I'm doing the Cabo Jazz Festival in late May. That'll be my first time on an airplane. I mean, it'd be the first time for a lot of things, you know.
Wow.
And
are you vaccinated, by the way?
Got both shots, baby. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yeah, you guys too?
We're slowly getting into the number
Yeah.
of acceptables. They've gotten down to my age group, so I think I can get it now.
Well, see,
Yeah, it's funny. In Hollywood, everybody's finally admitting their true age. Oh, I got my shot 2 months ago.
right, exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah, we decided, honestly, I was on the fence about the vaccines for quite a while, both me and my wife, and we would have these endless discussions about them. But what we had said was, if we do get the shot, we're going to take it later in the year just to see how it's reacting to other folks and all that, or if there's going to be some hiccups in it. And but then, what was it? In early February, a golfer friend of mine calls me out of the blue on a Saturday afternoon, and he says, "Hey, man, my wife is working as a volunteer at one of these centers that are giving the vaccines today, and they had some no-shows and some cancellations. And my wife called me to ask, you know, my golf buddies if anybody want to come down and fill up these slots." And so I look at Glennis and I tell her, "Okay, look, you know, I know we've been talking about this, but this might be fate for us. This might be a blessing in disguise. And 2 hours later, we were getting that shot.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
And then scheduled the second shot. And we just got the second shot about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, and we feel great, you know.
Good.
Welcome to the herd. Welcome to the herd.
Yeah.
We're watching Ben.
We just needed to know.
One shot move. We're trying to go for the one shot.
You're gonna do the J&J.
That's right.
Yeah.
One and done.
We just needed to know, Gerald, so when we take you out on tour with us, you know that you're good
I'm
to
all
go.
good, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, man, one of my fondest memories was being on the cruise with you, and
Yes, sir.
not just being able to play with you and then listen to you play, but then be able to talk to you after and just hash up, you know, those times. You know, one of the things that people really don't have a lot of opportunity to do is sit there and listen to wisdom, listen to your experience, listen to the way you see life. And that's just one of my fondest memories. You, your family,
Yeah.
you know, just everything.
Beautiful family, man.
I hope
Oh,
that
thank you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you saying that, Joel. It was a pleasure and honor for me to hang with you guys too. And I'm glad we got that quality time to not be on stage and do our quick 75 and then go to our respective dressing rooms, you know.
Right.
It was nice to have some brotherhood, you know, and I just love that. I think that keeps the spirit of what we do alive
Yes.
and perpetual. So I thank you for your time as well, you know.
Absolutely.
So, Gerald, how can people keep up with you? How can they reach you? I know you have to go in just a little bit.
Well, the hub is www.geraldalbright.com. And I just implemented a new online store there where you can buy, you know, a bunch of my CDs, and I will autograph them and ship them right to you. But I'm on social media, Facebook, but you can get to all that social media through my website. You know, you can just click on Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
It is.
And I'll be happy to say hello.
And anyone who's listening who needs their project to be mixed, Gerald Albright will do it for you.
For a nominal fee.
I got my headphones right here, man. I'm ready to go to work. Let's go.
Awesome. So we'll also include your links in our bio.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Hope to see you out there on the road, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I'm working on something right now that you know, we're talking to your manager. And
I'm on my way.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Already done.
Yeah, I'm already, you know, in that GA/Take 6 thing, man. So I would love to do something with you.
Done and done,
man.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Gerald. We loved having you on here with us, man. Just hanging out, just like on the cruise, man. That's what this feels like. So thanks for coming on.
Love to Glennis, love to Selena, your big grandbaby, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and love to your families. And let's get out of this crazy pandemic so we can get our groove on, guys.
Let's do it.
Man.
And happy almost 50th anniversary, right?
That's
Thank
right.
you. Next year. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Amazing.
That is awesome. So everybody, thank you for hanging out with us. Please like, subscribe, mash that button, go to Gerald's pages. We've had a wonderful time with you. We'll see you again next week, hopefully.
All right. Take care, you.
Thanks, guys. God bless.
Bye. Thanks.
All right. All good.
All right.
All right.